This is a concept map for cell biology lab constructed of chemical words. And here in the center of our concept map is the atom. The atom is the smallest particle that can't be broken up into other pieces. And connected to the atom is the nucleus, and the nucleus is the center of the atom. It is positively charged because it has protons and neutrons. Neutrons are neutral, protons are positive particles, and protons, when counted up, make up the atomic number, and that tells us what element the atom is based on how many protons are in the nucleus. And the nucleus is the densest part of the atom, and so it combined makes the molecular weight up. Molecular weight is the mass of the atom. There are other parts of the atom, but they're negligible in weight compared to the neutron and proton. And the molecular weight is measured in Daltons. Daltons is just a form of measurement. So connected to Dalton are more forms of measurement. We have gram, liter, and meter. And like Daltons, grams measure mass, liters measure volume, and meter measures length. All of these can be times by 10 to be smaller or larger. And so connected to liter, we have milliliter, and that is a smaller unit of liter. Connected to liter is also molarity. Molarity is a concentration of moles over liters, and it helps us work out different equations. Moles connected to molarity right here is another unit, and it helps us measure elements. It helps us measure atoms. So moles is based off of how many atoms are in 12 grams of carbon. I don't know why they chose 12 grams of carbon, but that's what it is. And so that number is Avogadro's number. It's 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd. So that's a really big number. Atoms are really small, and so that helps us work with numbers that we like to work with, that are easier to work with, yeah. And connected to that atom is also the electron here. And electrons are negatively charged particles, and they are found around the atom, except we can never really find exactly where they are. We never know an exact location for an electron. We just have a best guess, and this best guess is in an energy level, which is also called electron shells. And so we can say this electron is going to be closer to the nucleus, and it's going to be in the furthest electron shell. And the electron shell on the most outer edge is the valence shell, and inside the valence shell are the valence electrons. And these electrons are the ones that allow chemistry to happen. They interact with other atoms by either getting pulled away, or these are where new electrons are added. And so connected to valence electrons are electron acceptor and donator. And electron acceptors are acids. They also donate protons, as another way to think about it. And so connected to electron acceptor are cations. Cations are positive, and they often act as acids. And connected to electron donors, anion, same concept, often except negative, often act as a base. And in the middle there we have pH, and pH is a scale to base acids and bases. And then coming off of electron acceptor is electronegativity, and electronegativity is another scale of how well an element accepts electrons. And so fluoride is the element that accepts electrons the best, and so it has the highest electronegativity. And then connected to electron donor, or anion here, I already did that. Electron donor connected to anion here is acid and base. I talked about these a little bit already. So connected to base is the hydroxide ion. This is OH. It's found in a lot of reactions. And it is an electron donor. And here we have acid, and connected to acid and base are salt, because salt is the product of all acid-base reactions, and connected to salts is ionic bond. That's because salt has an ionic bond. That's when all the electrons are pulled over to one of the atoms in the molecule. And in an ionic bond, when immersed in solution, it will break apart, like NaCl goes to one sodium ion and one chloride ion. And then connected to electron donor is oxidation reduction reaction, and that's when one molecule either gains oxidation state or goes down in oxidation state. And then connected to acid is the hydrogen ion. This is H+, and it is also often thought of as a proton because it is just a proton. And then connected to hydrogen ion is hydronium ion. This is water with an extra proton attached, so H3O+. It acts as an acid. And then water is H2O. It is neutral and can act as a water or base. It's called amphoteric, depending on what other molecules are surrounding it. And connected to water is a couple of different things. We have adhesion and cohesion. Both of these mean to stick together, but cohesion are like to like sticking together, and adhesion is unlike to like sticking together. Hydrophobic interactions is also connected to water. Hydrophobic literally means water hating or fear of water. Certain things like oil, for example, repel water, and that's what hydrophobic interactions do. And then connected also to water are water isotopes, and so almost all elements have an isotope, and that is when the element has a different number of neutrons, and so it changes the chemistry a little bit, or a reactivity a little bit. And so water has a couple different ones, either on the hydrogen or the oxygen. And then connected to, I guess water still, is hydrogen bond network of water. And water is kind of unique, actually very unique, but one of the ways is that the oxygen and hydrogen will bond together when they're not in the same molecule. And so it creates a web sort of action, and that is why water has such high surface tension, and why it sticks together so well. And connected to that is hydrogen bond, and that's the reason for the webbing. Hydrogen bond works only with oxygen, nitrogen, and fluoride. That's because they have really high electronegativities, and so they connect with hydrogens that are free. Then connected to water isotopes are radioactive isotopes, and so it's the same idea of an isotope, except these will decay, and while they decay, they spit off they're radioactive, and they decay in a half-life. And that's the rate. And so in, say, 1 hour, if the half-life is 1 hour, 1 hour later, the isotope will have decayed by half. And then an hour later, it will now be at 25% of the original amount. And then coming all the way back to our starting point at atom, connected to atom is an element. I've talked about elements a little bit already, but they are different atoms, and they're differentiated by the number of protons, or atomic number. And connected to element are elements. carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. And all of these are fundamental to life. They're really important, especially when working with cells, so cell biology. And I connected all of these to organic chemistry. Organic chemistry is the study of hydrocarbons. Oxygen and nitrogen are really important too. And my inorganic chemistry professor told me that inorganic chemistry is the study of everything else. So organic chemistry works with the first two rows on the periodic table, and inorganic chemistry really works with the rest of the periodic table. And connected to organic chemistry is isomer. Isomers are different arrangements of atoms in the same molecules. They have the same chemical formula. They're just structured differently. And then connected to carbon, we have our first functional group. And functional groups, they all look pretty similar. I have them drawn out here because they're hard to explain, except they have very different chemistry. They have different reactivities. And so first is methyl, and methyl is just a substituent. It's C with 3 H's around it connected to an R group, which for these purposes, R is a carbon chain, carbon-hydrogen chain. And connected to methyl is aldehyde, and so an aldehyde is an O double bond on a carbon chain. And then connected to aldehyde is ketone. Important notice, ketone and aldehyde look very similar, except here we have a carbon and here we have a hydrogen. And so that allows ketones and aldehydes to do different chemistry. And then next we have carboxylic acid, and carboxylic acid is another double bonded O, and it creates a really acidic H on this OH right here, and so that's why it's an acid. This H is easily donated, or it donates the H. And then connected to carboxylic acid are an amine group, and that is an N in the functional group. And we have sulfhydryl, and sulfhydryl is sulfur on an R group, and this is polar, it has a dipole. And we have phosphate, and that is a phosphorus atom, and with O double bonded at the top, and connected to an R group over here. And then we have an amino. Amino and amines look very similar. Connected to amino are amino acids. There are 20 amino acids, and they are they make up proteins and DNA. So connected to them are proteins, and proteins are essential to life. They're enzymes. They're good for structural purposes. They do a lot of stuff for us. And so connected to proteins are nucleic acid, and nucleic acid is what makes up DNA, and nucleotides is connected to nucleic acid. Nucleotides make up nucleic acid. Also connected to proteins are glycoproteins.